All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to give everybody just a little bit of time to hop on. What's up, everybody? We're gonna get to the money. There we go. Sorry. Alrighty. Wait, give everybody just a second to hop on, and we'll get to it. Hope everybody had a good 3-day weekend. Huh. I got spammers in here now. What's up? All right. All right. Getting some news pulled up here. Excuse me. Alright, so we're going to head to StockTwits real quick, and we're going to start by taking a look at the earnings going into this upcoming week. So, starting on Monday, we have CGC. There's a reason why I am bringing that one up as well, not just because it's first, but because this earnings could spur some movement in a positive direction for a couple of different cannabis stocks that all have potential reversal patterns. So that's one thing that we're going to be keeping an eye on going into this week. Zoom, of course, Zoom has, obviously this is after the bell. I'll be paying close attention to the premiums on the options for this one. I am curious to see if my gut instinct says that it falls, and the reason being is just due to the opening and reopening of the majority of the largest, countries in the world. People getting back to work, people not at their computers, so at least at the house anyway. So that could be one thing that could be a factor going into next week. And what I like to do, as obviously these things are not ultra important to me, but I do know where Zoom is at currently in its chart. It has had several bounces off of support, currently sitting up against that 200-day EMA. So that is definitely something you should keep an eye on if you are trying to play Zoom into next week. The drop, Zoom could potentially see a drop to 256, which is quite a bit of cheddar for Zoom, but that would potentially make a new low here. So my price target there And that is actually, if you go back over to this side, you'll see a multitude of relatively strong supports over here that kind of coincide. So 250 would be my price target. So right around there, probably a sharp drop somewhere in this area, and then a bounce back up, and then downtrend to that support. So anyway, let's go back up here. APBS, Digital Turbine. And what I was saying here is what I like to do is just set alerts on some of my price targets. That way I get a heads up if things start moving in either direction. Hard to see it going up, but I could be wrong. Okay. Let's see here. I'll set an alert there that's got earnings on Monday. That one could potentially assist in movement. But anyway, so we have AI, Cloudera, Splunk. Those are some interesting ones on Wednesday, Thursday. It is a short week. We've got ChargePoint, CrowdStrike, which I am excited to see their earnings. It is one that we see quite a bit of senators, congressional members, if you will. They put a lot of their money into CRM, so it's definitely one that I like to keep an eye on. That one and Work, DocuSign, all of those are relatively popular amongst Congress members. So if you're curious and want to check out Congress member trading, go to Quiver Quant, and you can check out all sorts of neat stuff here. Senate trading, House trading, government contracts, product recalls, political violations, fines. You can see what's trending on Wall Street bets, news, hacker news, insider trading, CEO compensation, all sorts of stuff like that. So one of the places I like to keep track on where the money is going. It's never a good idea to trade against the market. It's always a good idea to follow the big money. 80% of the market is owned by big money, so small fishes. All right, so ChargePoint Friday, nothing too exciting. It is a short week. Going into next week, it looks like we're not too turned. We do have Stitch Fix reporting, Marvel Technologies, Coop, which is seemingly relatively popular trading stock. I've never traded it. Nothing really on Wednesday. Other than that, that's about it. 1 second. All right, so right now, as far as news is concerned, futures were up about 4 points. Mini futures up 33 points. That's for the Dow. Gold is currently up just barely 0.05%. Dollar holding steady. Let's see here. Treasury bond, U.S. Treasury yield, that's sitting flat, and the bond yield is currently basically sitting flat as well. So nothing much going in. That's always better to have no movement than a ton of, obviously a gap down. That'll usually spur some sporadic movement when in the market, as investors are a little confused on what the next move is, especially retail. So Chewy's always an interesting one. We could actually, I think that's one that we should take a look at. And one of the reasons why I do this with you guys and why I'm starting to do this a little bit more often is because this is how I find momentum. I like to go and look at earnings where a lot of stocks will fall after great earnings. Only makes for a great buying opportunity. So it's good to try and find, especially companies that you've traded before, how they move a little bit. Chewy is one of those. Okay, so pretty obvious right here. A falling wedge. Looks like we have, that's never a good sign right there on the daily. So we may see a little bit, so what it looks like it might even trade flat. Let's see, what was that next week? That's the 10th. Yeah, so we'll see here, but that also could have just been because of the market. So I'm going to set an alert there at 76.21. And listen, that's about what it takes for you to, as far as a trader, right? Not as a long-term investor or anything like that. But as a trader, it's really good to try. That's how I practice a lot of the times, just charting and stuff like that. And it helps me stay quick. But at the same time, this skill pays off during the day when you need to be. Like if you find a stock that you see momentum and volume, you can take a step back and look at the higher time frames. But this is one of the ways that I find stocks is by going through, the earnings calendar, going through what's trending, what has been trending, this stuff, where's the money going at, Senate trading, what are the senators buying right now? How much are they buying? Like right now, you can see the sentiment's relatively low, as we've seen previously. I haven't gotten the recent transactions here, but yeah. So I mean, it's good to keep an eye on those kind of things. All right, so looking at Chewy, that one looks good. I have got alerts set on that one. Set one on the 9-day moving average. All right, so top news right now. Let's see here. As far as we can see, Goodyear Tire is facing accusations of unpaid wages, unlawful overtime, threats to foreign workers at its Malaysian factory, according to court documents and complaints filed by workers. Intel CEO said it could take several years for the global shortage of semiconductors to be resolved, as that problem has shuttered some auto production lines and is also being felt in other areas, including consumer electronics. Oh, those are fireworks. Sometimes the fireworks kind of sound like guns. It's the almost the 4th of July. It's been the 4th of July here in Savannah for 2 months. All right. Nothing really else that I can see at the moment. Let me see here. Okay. See the 29th. Yeah, that was Friday. All right. Well, let's go ahead. I'm going to get into some things that I am watching going into tomorrow. Okay, so right off the bat, I know some of you guys are going to laugh, but it's there. It's time, and it's starting to, I've noticed that the social sentiment online has picked up quite a bit. Even if you go and look at TradingView, or StockTwits, you can actually go look and see how the sentiment has rose from the beginning or the middle of the month, where we definitely saw a sentiment change, but has since picked up the message volume has dropped significantly. And it's funny, it kind of correlates with the significant drop in volume and movement that we've seen. If you go look at BIDU on its daily time frame, I didn't mean to turn that on. We almost had like a little tri-star play, right? And I mean, if we're not going to go down, then, or if this doesn't end up going up now at this point, I'd be really surprised. And one of the reasons why I say that is we have made multiple dojis. The selling pressure and volume is just abysmal. It's low. It's sitting under its 200-day EMA, and it's already had earnings. Earnings weren't that bad, and just looking at it's so tightly consolidated. I had my MACD up earlier as well, and you can see on the MACD it's just really, really tightly coiled up. If you look in comparison to some of the previous rollovers and power that we see, it's just not there. But it does look that if we could get a push, the first initial push would put us immediately back up into that $200 range. In my opinion, you know that how people are, when you break into that psychological number or break over that psychological number of 200, that would likely initiate some buying into BIDU. Now, I know that there's also like the overhead China news, but it seems that with Biden in office, some of these Chinese stocks could end up getting some type of alleviation that would allow them to kind of bounce back. BABA and BIDU, if you haven't noticed, those tend to run similarly, or if not, the price action during the day will kind of replicate each other. But looking at BIDU, it's pretty simple. If you look at the 200 on the hourly and the daily, they're in the same spot. That right there shows me that if we can climb over and get this EMA crossover and volume does end up stepping up, this could be potentially the bottom here. And we've tried multiple times, and this has honestly been a difficult place to trade BIDU, but it's also been kind of crazy to see it consolidate. So I'm ready to see a little bit of movement pick up. Right now my price target is going to be right around 205, and so what I'll likely do going into tomorrow is I'll likely grab maybe somewhere around the $200 strike for June 18th, and likely scalping this, right? We're sitting at 196, so we're looking for basically a $4 move. And if we look at the setup right now, we are extremely consolidated underneath that 200-day moving average. So one push would initiate that EMA crossover. If that EMA crossover happens, then we would likely see that $200 range hit easily. We've also seen an AI, and we've seen that for multiple weeks in a row. We've seen flow out into the $200 range. Even going back out into last week, I was trading against the flow, and BIDU continued to fall. So looking at this right now, it's honestly going to be, I'm not going to say simple, but seeing how little selling pressure there is there, I'm pretty excited to play this one to the upside, seeing as not only has it established a new trend, but if we go here, or as established its support, if we go here, this pullback right here was almost like a retest of this support right here, to resistance turns support. And if we were going to fall last week, we saw a lot of choppy movement. BIDU usually will make up its mind and we'll see a pullback. We did not see that. And again, we made that kind of consolidation candles, multiple daily dojis consolidated underneath that 200-day moving average. So in my opinion, it's quite simple. We're just going to be looking for a break over that 200-day EMA. I think that's a good place if you have like the hourly time frame up to just set a alert on that EMA. Number one thing we're looking for is obviously volume. So if we want to, we can go and look and see. This looks like good, consistent. It's pretty choppy here. Wow, BIDU just runs on no volume. So this is crazy volume, but that was the bill weighing thing. So that could have just been an anomaly there. Yeah, so I would just set an alert there at that 200-day moving average, and we'll just be watching volume and price action. I was going to set an alert on it, but it just seems like it kind of is choppy. There's not a lot of consistent volume on this, so let's see here. Yeah, all right. So BIDU is one that we were watching. Now, another one for swing traders in here, if you guys don't follow me on TradingView, if you do, you already saw it. Story's kind of already here, so I'll just kind of walk you through what I'm looking at, or what I'm thinking here. So going to the daily time frame, what are you doing all the way over there? Okay, so first thing that's noticeable is a tiny little pop on the volume. We had good earnings. They continue to make new acquisitions across California and other legal states for basically they just sell the equipment to sell for cannabis farms in order to utilize hydroponic, or if it's just nutrition, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what they specialize in, which is great, seeing as they can deal with the banks. They don't have to deal with any laws or any federal disposition, nothing like that. So they're able to benefit from the cannabis industry without actually being in the cannabis industry. So you will see some cannabis sector stocks run away from the cannabis sector, and GRWG is one. So right here, looks like we have had 1, 2, 3 bounces off support. We have a bounce off of that 200-day EMA. Pretty sure you guys know what that one is. If you don't, it's just one of the really strong moving averages on that daily time frame. And not only that, we have pushed and broken and held, which is the most important factor here, a daily candle above that resistance. And you can see there's a wick there. I really tried to make sure I got that my resistance on the money here to make sure that I wasn't, goofing this up or giving it a little bit of extra space. But you can see that there's multiple wicks here. Even just this doji here holds that wick. So what we're looking for here, this is always a really pivotal place. But what I'd like to do is potentially stagger a position on GRWG. This is not one that's really a great day trade. For the most part, sometimes you can see something crazy. But I have analyst price targets at 55. So I think that a $50 June 18th, and if you guys want to write that down. So GRWG. We can do June 18th, but I think, let's see where we're at now. We're at 44. So I think the $50 strike for June 18th isn't a terrible strike to go with. But I also have the August 20th, what is it? The $60 call, excuse me. And I'll go pull up what those finished at. If you guys have any questions, make sure to put them either in the YouTube or Stacks. Wow, it's simple sex. That actually said one sex. Sec. Oh, now I can't say it. Okay, let's see here. Right, yo. hope we can have another really good week this week. Hoping so, anyway. Hoping for the bulls to step up. Otherwise, this GRWG plan doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so June 18th. Looks like the $50 strikes are at a cool 100 at the ask. If we go out to, we don't have August. I think I was kind of just eyeballing that one. We've got June, July, October. So I think I like that. Okay, so we got June 16th, and I think I like that a little bit better. But, or excuse me, July 16th. $60 call. And that one's at $76. So at most, we'd be putting $176 of risk. Now, this is one that we could put our small accounts on, but we would have to be really, really patient. And it would also take away from that buying power. So if the play takes 2 weeks, that's 2 weeks that we're waiting on that return. But with the way that GRWG moves, and if it does end up breaking that 47.50 mark, that's my first target. Now what we'll do is more than likely we'll swing trade on Tuesday into Wednesday, depending on the price movement. We'll swing $45 contracts. Now that may not be on a small account, but that's likely where I would take that. Also looking at the 44.50 strike as well. But that's my target towards the end of the week if we do end up seeing a positive movement. How do I use the MACD? So if you look at how the MACD correlates with the chart, right? You're going to use these two moving averages, right? So when the blue line crosses over the orange line, so we could just kind of like circle it here, crosses over the histogram, you will usually correlate that with the strength, right? So essentially the higher the hill or the lower the dip, the more strength, right? So when we see strength to that side and we see these moving averages cross over like that, that usually will be a sell signal. So you can just take that right there and just say, all right, sell. I'm not going to try and write that because I can't. But that would be your sell signal. And then to the upside or the opposite side, something like this, where they either reject or bounce off of each other, or initially here where they cross over for the first time, or here. So we already had a buy signal on GRWG for the first time since the beginning of April. So currently finishing up that MACD rollover. But does that make sense, Lindsay? Madame Lindsay? I hope I'm saying that right. Good evening, 1806. Ouch. I hope you guys couldn't hear that in the mic. If you can, I'm sorry. That was my shoulder. Alright, let's see here. Oh, God. Lindsay, okay. So essentially, and the MACD is just going to show you the strength, right? So that's a simplified explanation there. So anyway, I like GRWG long. This also coincides with the potential movement that we see on Tilray, which has a pretty decent falling wedge here, as you can see right there. Oops. I think CGC as well. Nice tight channel here on that descending wedge. So likely, in fact, all of those stocks are against that daily 50-day moving average or 200-day moving average. So it's going to be really interesting. If you look on this one as well, massive pullback here, and then you get that nice smooth rollover here with increasing volume. CGC has earnings tomorrow, so this could decide pivot points. No, pivot points don't work off of the MACD. No, not that I know of. I hope I'm not wrong on that, but as far as I know, that's not how they work. So looking at the MACD here, you can see you're getting that rollover on CGC, but also just looking at the earnings could potentially spur movement in the cannabis sector, right? So that's what we're going to be paying attention to, is whether the cannabis sector, I know some people look at, what is it? Hold on, what did I have it written down? There it is. Yeah, so if we take a look at the cannabis ETF, right? And that actually, it was a massive gap up. So just to be sure, that's the accurate resistance right there. There we go. So same deal here, falling wedge on the cannabis sector, potentially allowing us not much strength like we saw back here. A lot of the strength though, MJ is another good one, yeah. MJ, kind of same thing, trading flat. Not as a definitive wedge, but yeah, so. Sundial, yeah, so we actually played Sundial the other day. This one climbed up to the 200 EMA, same thing, same story, and in my opinion, you have the dangers that Wall Street Bets poses to the actual integrity of moving up on fundamentals, right? So on fundamentals, not a big fan. On price movement, we've seen some real, I mean, this thing, what did it go to? $3, $4? So I mean, like that's one that's has potential, but it's in the same, all I can say is it's in the same time frame, or same pattern, same wedge. Seeing an increase in volume, but a lot of the meme stocks have seen, Tilray, a couple of the other meme stocks, I don't know, Game, AMC, that stuff like that. We've seen movement in all of them, PLTR. So that's one of the reasons why. THCX. And we'll have somebody who knows quite a bit about cannabis we'll be doing some podcast with him. Some of you guys in the Discord know him well. He will be back. Hopefully soon. Yep, so okay, we pretty much got the cannabis sector. And this is important because now you have an idea of how the entirety of the setup, we could rotate into seeing cannabis movement again. Now, what does this mean for news? Does this mean that we're going to end up seeing some type of legalization? Does this mean that banks are actually going to start working with us or working with cannabis farms? Those are all questions, but sometimes the chart will set up the news, so that's always something that I find quite interesting. One of the most interesting things about charts to me is how they build them in correlation with the news. They know what is happening, and those are fucking dirty. Whatever. Just follow their trades until I can get one of them and short them. I'm just kidding, allegedly. I don't short. I only like options. All right. what else did I want to discuss with you guys? So we got the GRWG, right? So if you guys have these contracts written down, right? These are the ones that I'm going to be watching on Monday, right? So this, obviously, GRWG has a far different setup. Same consolidation, right? Same, we're up against resistance, all that good stuff, but a lot more consolidation. So I want to see some volume, and that's not something we haven't. That's something we have not seen. Hopefully, decent earnings by CGC. Honestly, I never bank on cannabis having good earnings. So as unfortunate as that sounds, I think that we could end up seeing I don't know, potentially a rounded bottom. But that's just a wild guess there, based off of similar charts that I've seen before, where descending wedges that don't end up breaking out end up turning into rounded bottoms or something of that nature. So we'll keep an eye on that one. All right, so we're gonna switch over a little bit. We've got BIDU written down. We got GRWG. We'll get to your guys' stocks as well here shortly. Ouch. So, semiconductor. Now, this isn't a play for now, but I want to get you guys kind of get the semiconductor blood pumping, because this, now I could be wrong and it could break out tomorrow. But looking at the chart, it looks like we're building a little triangle here, or a wedge if you want to call it that. But we're on our second bounce or second rejection potentially of resistance here. We've already had two major bounces off of support. Those took several days to make happen. You see a very gradual push, and then eventual rejection, and then or a gap down, and then a pull right back up. So nothing strong, but the volume is what I find really, really crazy. It's starting to decrease a little bit, but over the last from March basically till now, we've seen an insane amount of volume in that. And so what I did is I looked at SOX, that's the ETF for semiconductors. So that's definitely one that you guys should have written down or have somewhere around so that you can. You have the SPY's semiconductor ETF, but this is the actual largest, the other one. So for me, I would like to see, SOX hopefully fill its wick somewhere around 135.15. So that would be where I would start to kind of pay attention to it. So that's where I'm going to set an alert. And then I'm going to be watching linear deviation, right? So that's right there. I'm actually going to move that up just a tad. There we go. You're right there. So right around there, right around these moving averages, I would say 417 to 415 range. It would be worth setting an alert there, and that's where we could potentially see a pullback. So I'm going to set an alert on that linear deviation. That's that middle line in the middle of the pattern, and then I'm going to set an alert on the support as well, so that if we do end up touching that, I will get an alert. But this is one that I will be potentially eyeballing, because once we are on that third bounce, we could potentially see some movement in the semiconductor sector. Now, AMD doesn't look that great. I want to be hopeful and wish for the best here. And I even drew this thing out right here, and that's really given a lot. But even when I draw that, I look at the potential where it would go, and it would still need to go and fill. There's this big gap just right below, and we've jumped into it a little bit, but in my opinion, we know how AMD trades. They still want this lower. unfortunately. So this one has a gap below, but we do have NVIDIA running, which has caused a lot of movement in the semiconductor sector, and that's based off of the potential 4-for-1 split. And that, guys, I don't know if you know this, is not set in stone. The shareholder meeting is happening. So once that shareholder meeting happens and they vote yes, I'm sure they will, then, and that's when we'll see that news initiated, and that's when you're going to want to take don't ride through the news. You can ride up to the date with runners, but I would say 2 days before the actual split, we should be looking to, if anything, look at the lucrative options that may come. But IV is going to crush people when it starts to get to the top. I saw horror stories on Tesla when it first initiated its split. So okay, so that's with AMD, and for me, the reason why AMD is just a favorite, but I'm going to be keeping an eye on 7865, 7870. That's the 200-day EMA there. That'll give us an indication on whether or not we are going to move back down for another bounce on support, where we could even wick down and fill a gap and then hold that bodily candle there. So we'll be watching that. Or if NVIDIA does end up spurring movement in the semiconductor sector, maybe we do finally see a break of resistance. But you can see stuff like that, and that never is a promise sign, or is never a 100% set in stone sign. So, set in stone sign. Getting sleepy. Okay, so if we do see volume, we could get a little bit of an EMA crossover here. That's always a good thing, but I'm looking at a potential rejection. I also set an alert at 81. I'll put one at 80.50, and then I'll put one at 81. That way I can kind of get an idea if we end up pushing. I believe June 3rd is the vote, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I have to go. I have it written down, but okay. This one. Whoops. I guess that is it. Yeah, that's it. This is another one that I'm keeping an eye on. This one is ASML. A lot of them believe that this is overvalued, or has just ripped a little bit too hard. But I still see a little bit of more room, and I think on the long term, right? So like looking at this long term, they make the how do I pick my price levels? I'll go into that in just a second. We'll look at Tesla, IZEA. Yeah, I've seen that one. Is that for semiconductors, Derek? This one had a descending wedge, or ascending wedge, excuse me, and it ended up breaking down. And the reason why I'm watching this one, I want to bring it to your guys' attention, and we can go over the sheet, the paper, and the fundamentals another day. But looking at the chart, it does appear it could double top here, but I would actually like to see a double top of some sort, and a potential pullback where we could get in. They make semiconductor, the equipment to make semiconductors. So if that's not useful, I don't know what it is. And they had a pretty sharp MACD rollover, but still not a lot of strength there. Volume's down. So we have NVIDIA, of course, and that one you can see looks quite similar. This one now with a split, things can kind of get out of hand, and fundamentals can start to go out of the window. So that's definitely something that is a factor. And what we ended up doing is making, if I'm not mistaken, a new all-time high on NVIDIA, and you've seen since the news of the split, very large gap ups, very little. We get 3 days of consolidation, and then a massive push to the upside right before we even end up retesting any moving averages. So in my opinion, I'm looking at this as a potential target. I'm looking at this resistance here. So I think that on tomorrow, 670, and I know that's a big jump, but we've seen the way that stocks trade when this split is initiated. And I think NVIDIA is a great long-term investment. So it's probably about time where if you haven't bought NVIDIA, it may be too late, coming into this next week. But of course, if the shareholders vote no, you're in a pickle, and you're probably in one fast because you won't have time to react. If it happens after hours, then you're definitely, especially if you're in options, you're absolutely toasted. So this one though, so to answer your question, Lindsay, for me it's going to be one of two things, right? So I have price levels, and I find those by just looking for areas of respect, psychological numbers. So 575, right? That's a psychological number. We can see a level of resistance there as well. The body, excuse me, my speech right now is off. I'm not drunk. The body of this candle is sitting on top of that line, and these candles here hold respect and do not end up breaking that resistance. And then on top of that, if I wanted to, usually I'm just looking for where is their levels of respect, where are there certain price points where we see big rejections or even big breakouts. So for me, and a good way to practice this is to go back and look. Right here we can see that there was some sort of little flag here, pretty neat little channel, holding that channel 1, 2, 3, just like we talked about, 3 bounces of support, and then making a new high, 1, 2, 3, 4, basically 4 days of solid green, and then you get a little bit of pullback and just continue right up. So I'm always looking for levels of respect, or breakout levels, rejection levels, and those are usually going to look or be quarter numbers, whole numbers especially, of course, but that's usually how I find my price levels. And then as far as finding like price targets with GRWG, I'm looking at and for a beginner like yourself, if you're, I didn't mean to assume you're a beginner, but if you are a beginner, then what you would want to do is on TradingView, you could use something called pivot points. And pivot points, and I may be off, I haven't marked out all my levels, but pivot points are actually relatively good way to get started. And I mean, some people just end up using those forever. For me, I like to find my levels. It's just like a psychological thing. And then sometimes if I need extra verification. But when you turn on the pivot points, so the pivot point strategy is basically going to give you those levels. And if you look at where the pivot points are, you'll see the respect. So this orange line here, right? This P right here, that's a pivot point. So when it breaks a pivot point, usually to the upside, you'll see some pretty decent continuation. And if it breaks to the downside below a pivot point, you'll see that's like the point, right? So like GRWG, I think, let me see. So GRWG, oh wow, so look at that, my target is the pivot point, right? So 47.50, that's the first reasonable target. If we hit that 47.50 target and we climb higher, then more than likely we would definitely see $50. Okay, well, I just didn't want to assume, I don't like to assume that anybody's a beginner, I've had fundamental people who've been trading stocks or buying and selling stocks their whole lives, and they ask me about charts, so. But that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for asking questions. I'm really glad that you're trying to learn. Anybody else who has any questions like that, let me know. Okay, so anyway, NVDA price target for me is going to be that 570 range. So within the next couple of days, whatnot. I think that we could see another run up there. We have dividends on the 9th, but other than that, the projected split right now is July 20th. So that gives us plenty of time to send it, which I'd be more than happy to take part in. So we'll be watching that one day to day. And with a split, a lot of volatility. Listen, I've had candles on Tesla during the last split. I still don't know if I fully recover. Sometimes I wake up, just big red candles crashing through the ceiling, trying to get me. No, I'm just kidding. But they were bad. I had a Manny. If you guys ask Manny about Tesla, about the Tesla wick, he'll probably remember. But I was playing options. How do I turn on pivot point? So you'll go to indicators, and you'll literally type in pivot, and then you'll see pivot point standards, pivot point high and low. So for me, I have the traditional auto. You have auto pivot points right here. Here, 1 second. Yeah, hold on a second. Where do you see, so Sadakar, I hope I said that wrong. Wrong. Where do you see, right now unless I'm missing data, we're at all-time highs right now. So unless you're talking about pivot points, if you're talking about pivot points, then yes, you're more than likely correct. Let me see. So 680 is actually what the chart says on the monthly. That's pretty tight. Let's see here, 6. Huh? Look at that pivot point right there is lined up with 670. Yeah, if you could elaborate on that question or on that resistance. But 660 is definitely any psychological number. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at, how that daily candle, or even if it's on the hourly time frame, how it deals with that. If you're playing NVIDIA and you see a run up like this, right, and you see a candle where you don't lose that much ground, but it opens up and closes halfway down, more than likely it's a good idea to at least trim, cut some of your position if you're a long-term holder. If you're not, if you're just swing trading, get out of the trade. More than likely, if anything, it's not gonna V-shape out of a candle like that. Candle, that's why we do a candle analysis, in order to get an idea, of where we're going to see continuation and in relevancy to where our resistances and support are. So this one, obviously, you wouldn't have been able to totally know. I guess if you would have ran, I don't think so. But this would have been, the resistance that you were looking for. You would have been able to identify it totally. But the, seeing let's see, where's the psychological number? That's 650, right? So if you get a rejection candle at 650, boom, that's all you really need to know. Okay, that's not all you really need to know. Obviously, you want a price action and stuff like that. Volume, if you see big volume or something like that, right? You see a big drop in volume, and then start to see the moving, the indicators to reacting, looking like they're going to go for a crossover. Probably about time to get out. All right, so we'll go ahead and take your guys' request. I was connecting lines of resistance between wicks on September 2020 and April 21st. You're doing that? Or are you doing that? Yeah. So I think the one thing that changes and is the variable here is the split. We can go back to Apple, right, and look at how they ran. You could have, in fact, let me see something. Look at that. So even something like that, or if you're to run something like that, it still ends up breaking it, right? Because it has something, the catalyst is too large. So, yes, Ryan. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll look at AMC. And we'll start on the daily. Okay, so normally, let's start with this. The squeeze hasn't squoze. And that's not a meme, that's for real. We'll look at Tesla and IZEA, sorry about that. I forgot about those. But the squeeze, it hasn't finished yet. And it hasn't even started. What is happening now is the bet, right? We're taking our bet on whether or not the squeeze is going to happen. Because we know that AMC used to trade way higher, right? And we talked about previously, now it got pulled back down, but we talked about these targets. All of these targets got crushed. Now, this is when the real, let me promise you guys this. Let me do this. Let me make my camera bigger so that you know I'm serious. I'll look right in the eyes. But this none of these market makers are chilling. That's a fact. Okay, these people are definitely on edge and trying to actively figure out whether they should take a loss, which has a huge impact on their company, right? It's not just something they shake off, it's something they have to deal with. Or do they double down and try it again? And hopefully with just sheer volume, they'll see, retail give up. I think just seeing the range of that candle is a perfect example of what they're doing. It got to all-time high, or excuse me, I think it did. I think AMC, yep, it whipped and hit 36.73. So, let me pull that over. I mean, let me go back down. Sorry, I was just checking my messages, making sure you guys didn't say anything. But there is still quite a bit more of movement that we could potentially see. And so going into this upcoming week, obviously this is never a good look, right? You got a pretty obvious bear flag. and you had a gap. That gap got filled. I wish I kind of played that gap, but anyway, but you're sitting flat right here on this resistance. Here's the two possibilities that I see. I see an obvious bear flag where shorts could get in and it go the opposite way, right? Even if it's retail shorts, right? People flip the positions, right? When they see this, they're like, shit. And then they flip, right? I think that we could see it pop and get it a potential head and shoulders. That's the bear case. Any type of bull case is still going to see pullback, unfortunately. The nearest one that I see right now is going to be this 50-day moving average at 2275. 2275, then we can start looking at the potential for a bounce. But in my opinion, I think that I think AMC, also let me add to this. They had news that they're allowing unmasked guests that have been vaccinated into their theaters. That's big news. That'll definitely, and let me also say this. This will never change. Retail will never, people like the theater going experience. I personally I do like theaters. I always sit in the back because I don't like people sitting behind me in the dark. It creeps me out. But I still like theaters. I still like the experience of getting popcorn and junk food and stuff like that. And I think I'm amongst 80% of the American consumer that still likes to go and see a movie here and there. Fundamentally, I don't think they're going to end up pulling any catalysts out of their hats now. I wonder if they'll utilize this time to take profits. Hopefully maybe they can pay off some debts or work on management or, opening up some type of virtual AMC theater lounge, or something like that. But yes, Kenneth, that is technically a bear flag. So I would say to that 50-day moving average, that 2175. But then again, don't play against the grain if you know what's good for you. So be careful, especially with options. Oh, excuse me. That are going to be overinflated. All right, so I don't want to spend too much time on one ticker, but this Tesla, yikes. So a lot of levels on this one. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of you. Okay, so this one, same thing. It's on the hourly time frame. And as you can see, we have been holding the support relatively well, like so. But that is about as bearish of a candle you can get. You can see the result of candles like that previously. Big old candle here, extended amount of downtime here as well. So this looks like the start to a new pullback, but we do have that. Let's see, what does that mark? 620. I'll put it on 620. It's 618.65. That's this daily time frame's 200-day moving average. And that's potentially where we could see it make its first stop. Anywhere below that, then we would have just exchanged this resistance for support, and likely would see a retest, probably somewhere down in the $600 to, well, actually I would say the $575 range if we do end up continuing to trend down. Now that might not be a straight line, so it may end up taking, a while, but I think by the end, if Tesla doesn't hold support here, and doesn't bounce off of that 200-day moving average, then more than likely we'll see Tesla start to kind of trend to the downside from here. But that hourly candle is never something that you like to see towards the end of the day. looking at the daily time frame, you were on a decent bull run here. You have had a previous doji like this before, but volume is incredibly low. I still have the, and I don't mean like in all honesty, now that I look at the daily time frame, the 9-day moving average is at 600, which is right there where I was talking about. But in my opinion, yeah, I would say you would more than likely see consolidation here since you've broken down that resistance. Let me do something really quick just to make sure. Yeah, so what could happen is we could see just a few days of consolidation, or even just a couple days. We do have a short week, so that could contribute to that shortness there. But if you look at the daily time frame, you know, like we are due for at least one more tap of this resistance here. So in my opinion, it looks like with the low volume that we're heading into some consolidation there for sure. IZEA, did you want me to chart that one, Derek? We'll be live at 8:30 tomorrow morning too, guys, so we'll be able to check out some more. That's ugly. But it sure looks like it wants to break out now. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Dash, anything bullish. Oh, I'll do it tonight, Derek. It's fine. I was just telling people. I would say it looks relatively bullish. The volume was definitely really, really high, bouncing off of that support. I'm not quite sure what earnings did or what earnings was like, but in my opinion, like I said, I don't play DoorDash that much, but in my opinion, if you see it anywhere above 160, then you could potentially take it to the upside. It looks like the nearest target is 150, 154. 155 range. That's where I could potentially see some type of movement or definitive movement. Looks like you're going to go for a retest. The moving averages haven't caught up to that resistance. A lot of the times I like to wait for those moving averages to actually break resistance as well. That a lot of times will give me extra confirmation. So okay, and now we're going to go to IZA. And then I'm going to get ready to go to bed, guys, because I am exhausted. Oh, that had to hurt so bad. It's going somewhere. Right now you need to see a gap up, something like that. Send me the chart when you have. Have a second. All right, I feel like my brain's gonna shut down. So, all right, guys. Any questions? Please DM them to me. Squiggles. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and call it, guys. I also have some videos to edit, so I gotta finish those. But alrighty, you guys have a wonderful evening. I'll see you guys in the morning. Write down anything you guys want me to take a look at, and we'll look at it tomorrow. All right, good night.